There are angles all around us, in nature, in stores, and even in our own homes. If we take a second to look more closely, we can see all the angles we have already learned about in class in each of these photos. There are right angles, acute angles, obtuse angles, straight angles, and even reflex angles. In this video, we are going to find out 4 steps to measuring angles, but first, we need to take a look at our supplies. In order to measure our angles, we need a protractor, and we can find that inside our geometry set. The protractor has one flat side on the bottom and a curved part on top that gives you a half circle. The next thing we need to do before measuring the angle is identify the protractor. In the center, there is something called an origin. On this protractor, there are 2 perpendicular lines that make it look like a T. On the bottom, we have a baseline. On the right side, it's 0, and on the left side, it is also 0. Each of those zeros are connected to something called a degree scale. On the left-hand side, there is an outer scale that runs clockwise and an inner scale that runs counterclockwise. It is very important to keep track of which degree scale you are using. Another important thing to recognize is the numbers that we have on the outside of our protractor. The scale goes up by tens and is identified by written numbers. Between each of these numbers are 9 tally marks. They are really small to see and you have to get close to count them. They each represent 1 degree. Halfway between 2 written numbers is a bolded line, and that represents the halfway mark, and these go up by 5 degrees. And now we're ready to go through our 4 steps to measuring an angle. The first step is locate the origin and the vertex. We first locate where our perpendicular line is in the center, and we take that part of our protractor and we try and look exactly for the vertex of our angle. We take our protractor and line it up directly on top of the vertex. Once you have lined it up exactly, hold it tight. You don't want it to move from the center. Step 2. Align one of the angles raised and baseline. With the vertex still stationed at the origin of the protractor, choose one of the angles raised to line up with the baseline of the protractor at 0 degrees. Notice which scale you lined up with. We will use that same scale in step 3 to measure our second ray. For example, if you wanted to change the baseline or the bottom line of your protractor, you'd have to rotate your protractor and match up your vertex and origin and make sure it aligned with the bottom of the protractor. Now you'd be noticing that you'd be using a different degree scale. Step 3. Identify location of the second ray as it crosses the arc of your protractor. Notice that we are going to use the same degree scale, starting from the right, going counterclockwise, that we identified in the first 2 steps. Take your finger and rotate around the protractor until you find that second ray. Our final and 4th step is determine the degrees. Count up from that baseline on the inner scale and locate the exact degrees it crosses that second ray. Here I have identified that it is 70 degrees. This acute angle is 70 degrees, and we mark it down by writing it inside of our angle.